Rain hammered the windshield in fierce staccato. Emily Carter's heart pounded like a trapped animal. Cold sweat slicked her skin despite the storm. Headlights cut through mist on Pacific Coast Highway. Her knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. Metal groaned as an 18-wheeler loomed in her lane. She yanked the wheel left in blind panic. Tires lost grip on treacherous asphalt. The world tumbled into darkness and shrieking steel. When she opened her eyes, the world was silent. A dull ache throbbed behind her temples. Rain dripped through a jagged roof onto her cheek. Motor oil and damp pine needles clung to her clothes. Her breath came in shallow, ragged bursts. She blinked against the stinging pain. The car's chassis leaned perilously over a mossy cliff. Every breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. Rainwater pooled at her feet with icy urgency. Emily tried to move. Muscles protested with searing pain. Her left ankle twisted beneath mangled metal. She pressed trembling fingers to her mouth. Blood glazed her palm in sticky warmth. The engine's hum had faded into stillness. Lightning split the sky like a wounded beast. Thunder rumbled through the hollow cabin. She remembered the plan. John Dawson's funeral began at noon tomorrow. She had faked her death 3 days ago. No one suspected. She was alive. No one knew she intended to attend the funeral. Her mission hinged on confronting him one last time. But first, she had to survive this wreck. Pain flared as she shifted. Glass crunched under her weight. A beam of moonlight sliced through the shattered roof. She spat a broken tooth onto the floor mat. Fear roared louder than the storm outside. Hands trembling, she fumbled for her phone. The battery read 10%. No signal, just distant thunder and her own ragged breaths. Emily closed her eyes. She pictured her brother's face. His final text, "Stay safe, we'll get justice." He was the only one who knew the truth. She had promised him revenge. He died believing. She was gone. The thought knotted her chest. Light flickered at the cliff's edge. A dim lantern bobbed through the trees. Someone was coming. Hope surged through her veins. She reached out, her fingertips brushing cold steel. A crash of thunder drowned out distant shouts. Her vision blurred. Pain sharpened into white-hot agony. Emily. Her voice cut through the storm. It sounded distant, urgent. She willed her eyes to focus. A shadowy figure knelt by the driver's door. Rain washed over him in violent sheets. He wore a dark jacket, splattered with mud. His face was hidden under a hood. She opened her mouth to speak. Her throat burned with every word. "Help me," she rasped. The stranger froze. He reached inside his coat. Emily's breath hitched. "A gun." "No," he pulled out a first aid kit. The figure pried open the door. Glass shards crunched beneath his boots. He leaned in, voice low and calm. "I've got you," he said. His hand brushed her forehead. His eyes glowed with fierce intensity. Emily felt tears sting her cheeks. Lightning flickered again. She gasped as he pressed gauze to her wound. Pain seared through her leg. She bit, her lip fighting tears. He worked quickly. His fingers moved with practiced skill. Emily's breath steadied. "Why are you here?" she whispered. He paused, eyes meeting hers. "Let's just get you safe," he said. His voice was steady, a lifeline tossed in a raging sea. She closed her eyes again. Hope rose like fragile embers. She had cheated death once. She would cheat it again. But questions tumbled through her mind. Who was he? Why did he risk coming here? What danger still lay ahead? A flash of lightning revealed more figures. Headlamps bobbed on the narrow road above. They rushed toward the wreck. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. She clung to consciousness. That the hooded man tightened his grip. "We need to move," he urged. She nodded, pain slicing through every nerve. He hauled her from the wreck with surprising strength. Rain pounded them as they staggered into the trees. Branches whipped her face with icy fingers. Behind them, the wreck smoldered in the night. Emily coughed as she stumbled. The storm drowned out distant sirens. She looked back one last time. Flames licked the twisted metal. A sudden crack startled her. Something sharp bit her shoulder. She hissed in pain. He turned, eyes widening in alarm. Footsteps thundered behind them. "Stop!" a voice screamed. Emily's breath hitched. She whipped around to face her pursuers. And everything went black. Sarah Mitchell woke before sunrise in Santa Barbara. She lived in a modest beachfront bungalow. Ocean breeze drifted through her open window. Salt air carried morning seagull cries. She slipped on worn jeans and a gray hoodie. Her coffee machine gurgled in the kitchen. Steam curled from her favorite ceramic mug. Photos lined the walls. Family gatherings, childhood memories. A framed picture of her late brother sat on the mantel. Brian's smile felt frozen in time. He died 6 months ago in a suspicious accident. Police declared it a tragic glitch. Sarah never believed that official story. She worked as an investigative journalist at the Santa Barbara Gazette. Her desk sat under a corkboard of pinned notes. Newspaper clippings fluttered in the coastal breeze. Clues and deadlines intertwined on multicolored index cards. Her editor trusted her nose for hidden truths. She had earned that trust with tenacity. Neighbors knew her as a friendly, determined soul. She volunteered at the local library on weekends. Kids loved her storytelling sessions on rainy afternoons. But Sarah's nights were restless and haunted. Her apartment echoed with unasked questions. She replayed Brian's last text in her mind. "Watch your back," he had warned. She recalled his nervous laugh moments before his death. That laugh now felt like a cryptic clue. Her phone buzzed with a message from her roommate. "Coffee's ready." Sarah exhaled slowly. She rubbed tired eyes. Her roommate, Jenna Ruiz, was supportive. Jenna worked as a paramedic downtown. Their friendship had lasted since college. Jenna brewed stronger coffee whenever Sarah appeared exhausted. They sat at the small kitchen table together. Jenna offered a warm smile. "You look worn out," she said softly. Sarah nodded, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "I can't shake Brian's case," she admitted. Jenna's expression turned serious. "I'm here for you," she promised. Sarah forced a small smile. She downed her coffee. In 2 gulps, the Gazette's newsroom bustled with clacking keyboards. She parked her car near the old courthouse. Spanish Mission-style buildings framed her route. Palm trees swayed along State Street. She unlocked the newsroom door. Editor Marcus Hale glanced up from his desk. "Morning, Sarah," he greeted. His salt-and-pepper beard looked freshly trimmed. He handed her a live assignment. "Cover Mayor Thompson's charity gala tonight," he said. Sarah's stomach tightened. She felt the charity gala connected to Brian's death. She noticed the mayor's daughter at every public event. The mayor's daughter, Olivia Thompson, wore an engagement ring. Sarah sensed secret alliances behind polite handshakes. She gathered her notepad and recorder. Her phone vibrated with an unknown number. She ignored it. Strangers' calls rarely held answers. She checked her email. A sudden alert flashed. "Funeral service tomorrow. John Dawson." John Dawson, the billionaire collector who financed local charities. He died in a private plane crash last week. Rumors whispered of a staged accident. Sarah suspected ties between Dawson and Brian's accident. Her pulse quickened. She jotted down funeral details. High-end floral arrangements would line the church. Isle Dawson's widow would deliver the eulogy. Sarah felt a new surge of purpose. She would attend the funeral undercover. She would confront hidden enemies. But first, she needed more background. She called her mentor, retired Detective Alan Pierce. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah, you sound tense," he observed. She explained her plans. Pierce warned of powerful players in that circle. "Stay sharp," he advised. "You're stirring dangerous waters." She thanked him and hung up. Her stomach rumbled. She skipped lunch. She chased details until dusk. At home, she scanned Dawson's public records. Board minutes, financial statements, charitable receipts. Patterns emerged in coded entries. She underlined suspicious transactions. A series of shell companies lurked beneath Dawson's empire. She cross-referenced dates with Brian's accident. Linked documents lit up her eyes. Her heart pounded with vindication. She stared at the clock. Midnight approached. Jenna knocked on her door again. "Time to rest," Jenna urged. Sarah shook her head. "I can't sleep yet." Her laptop screen blurred. She shut it with a sigh. She lay on her futon, staring at the ceiling. Memories of Brian's laughter echoed. She whispered into the dark, "I'll make them pay." Her resolve solidified like tempered steel. Tomorrow's funeral would reveal secrets. She drifted into a fitful sleep. Rain began tapping against the window again. The same storm from her crash night returned. Sarah shivered at that omen. She tightened the blanket around her shoulders. Her final thought before sleep claimed her. Tomorrow, she would face ghosts both living and dead. Asterisk, asterisk. Sarah's phone pinged at dawn. An email notification glowed on her screen. Subject line read, "Urgent, confidential file enclosed." She paused, heart fluttering. attachments, a zip file, and a scanned letter. Her fingers trembled as she clicked, opened the zip. Inside lay a dossier of Dawson Foundation records. Every donation, every offshore transfer laid bare. She scrolled through page after page. Then she opened the scanned letter, handwritten in elegant script on cream stationery. It read, "Meet me at St. Mark's Chapel, midnight." No signature, no return address, only a single clue. "I can help you." Sarah's pulse quickened. St. Mark's Chapel stood on the hill above town. She once covered a charity gala there. Candlelight had warmed its wooden pews. Tonight, it would host secrets instead. Questions raced through her mind. Was this a trap or a lifeline? She grabbed her coat and recorder, slipped into the cool morning air. Coffee steam curled around her face. She drove past sunlit palm trees. St. Mark's steeple loomed in the distance. Her mind replayed Brian's last warning. She arrived at the chapel steps by noon. People filed in for Dawson's funeral rehearsal. She blended into the crowd. A volunteer handed her a program, lines of hymn lyrics and eulogy notes. Her eyes darted for familiar faces. She noticed a tall man in a grey suit. He hovered near the altar's edge. His posture was too rigid. She strained to catch his gaze. He turned away too quickly. Sarah pocketed her phone. She whispered a silent prayer. At midnight she returned. Fog rolled in from the coast. The chapel's windows glowed like watchful eyes. Sarah slipped through a side door. Dust motes danced. In her flashlight beam the sanctuary lay empty and silent. She placed the program on a pew. Her boots echoed on worn floorboards. A chill crawled up her spine. She tightened her coat collar. Then she heard it, soft footsteps behind her. She spun, light trembling in her hand. No one, just pews stretching into shadow. She advanced toward the pulpit. A door creaked open above. She climbed the narrow staircase. Moonlight poured through stained glass. She reached the choir loft. A figure stood in silhouette, tall, lean, waiting. "Who are you?" she demanded. Silence. Then he stepped into the pale light. Familiar blue eyes. Detective Alan Pierce, his trench coat dusted with coastal mist. "Sarah," he said softly. His voice trembled with urgency. "I didn't send the letter." She frowned, stunned. "Then who did?" she whispered. He pulled out an envelope. Her name scrawled across it. He handed it to her. Inside, a single photograph. Brian, alive and well at Dawson's yacht party. Dated 2 weeks before his accident. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She studied the photo. Brian laughed with Dawson's circle, a glass of champagne in his hand. His eyes glinted with excitement. But someone else stood behind him, a blurred face wearing a hood. Sarah's stomach twisted. Pierce's gaze was grave. "They kept him alive," he said. "The accident was staged." Sarah's fists clenched. "Why show me this now?" Pierce swallowed hard. "Because they know you're digging." He tapped his badge pocket. "The department is compromised." She felt a cold knot form in her chest. Compromised how? He shook his head. "High-level collusion. Dawson's influence reaches far." Sarah felt the chapel walls close in. Pierce pulled a small flash drive from his coat. "Everything you need is here." He paused. "Tell no one else." A distant siren wailed through the fog. Pierce's eyes darted to the stairs. "They're coming," he warned. He grabbed her arm. "Go now." Sarah hesitated. "Where will I find you?" He pressed a slip of paper into her hand. "An address in Old Town." He gave a curt nod. Then he disappeared into the darkness. Sarah's heart pounded like a war drum. She cradled the photo and drive. Storm clouds gathered overhead. Lightning flashed beyond the chapel. Footsteps thundered up the staircase. She ducked behind a pew. Breath caught in her throat. A pair of black SUVs rolled onto the courtyard. Doors opened with mechanical precision. Men in dark suits spilled out, flashlights sweeping the chapel. Sarah pressed herself against the wood. Her pulse thundered in her ears. They entered the sanctuary, voices low and urgent. She counted 3. Each carried a gun. One paused by the pulpit. His flashlight beam danced across empty air. Sarah swallowed hard. She edged toward a side window. Glass rattled under her weight. She leapt through the pane. Twigs tore at her coat as she hit the ground. She rolled into the fog. The chapel doors burst open. Shouts tore through the night. She sprinted toward the harbor. Rain began to fall in cold sheets. She clutched the flash drive to her chest. Neon signs flickered along the docks. A distant horn blue dot. Sarah rounded a corner. Her lungs burned with each breath. The glow of a motel sign appeared ahead. She ducked into the alley beside it, paused to catch her breath. She retrieved the slip of paper, the old town address. She took one last look at the chapel steeple. Fog swallowed it whole. She whispered to herself, voice trembling, "This is just the beginning. What awaits Sarah at the old town hideout?" Threat arrived before sunrise. Sarah sensed a tail on State Street. A black sedan glided behind her car. Its windows mirrored her every move. She ducked into a coffee shop. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She ordered black coffee without looking. The barista glanced at her warily. Outside, the sedan idled at the curb. Sarah paid and slipped out the back. Alley shadows swallowed her figure. Rain began again, soft and steady. She checked her rear-view reflection. No car, no tail. Relief washed over her briefly. Her phone vibrated with a text. "Stop digging, or else." No sender ID. She pocketed the phone, heart still racing. Later that morning, she met Mason Reed. He waited at a seaside park bench. Tall frame, stubbled jaw, steel blue eyes. He offered a brief nod. "Pierce said you'd come." Sarah studied him warily. "Can I trust you?" she asked. He opened his coat. A folded photo and envelope lay inside. He pressed them into her hand. "Proof I'm on your side." She unfolded the photo. It showed Pierce with a corrupt captain, both grinning, cigars in hand. Her stomach sank. Mason leaned forward. "They've infiltrated the force." His voice was low. "Even Pierce has enemies within." Sarah's mind reeled. She tucked the photo inside her jacket. "Why help me?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "My sister died in that crash too." Her gaze sharpened. "You knew Brian?" He nodded. "We were close in college." His eyes darkened. "We all were." They walked along the bluff. Fog rolled off the ocean. Mason pointed to a rusted fence. "Watch for drones above," he warned. Sarah glanced skyward. Barely visible rotors hummed through mist. "They're watching," she whispered. He tapped his earpiece. "Keep moving." They ducked behind shrubbery. Camera lights blinked overhead. Mason led her toward an abandoned boathouse. Inside, crates hid beneath tarp. He lifted a corner. Maps and satellite photos spread across a table. Red circles marked key locations. Pierce's address was crossed out. "Safe houses compromised," Mason said. A sudden crash echoed outside. Wood splintered under heavy boots. Footsteps thundered toward the door. Sarah's breath caught. Mason grabbed her hand. "We go now." They slipped through a side exit. Cold mist swallowed their escape. Sirens wailed in the distance. Sarah clutched the flash drive tighter. Back in her apartment, she found a note. "Nice hideout. Next time you're alone." No signature. She checked every window. All locked. She drew her pistol from the drawer. Her hand shook. She loaded one magazine, closed her eyes. "I'm not alone." That evening, an anonymous package arrived. Inside, Brian's engraved wristwatch. Its face cracked, leather strap stained. She turned it over in her hand. Her brother's initials etched on the back. Tears blurred her vision. A second note, tick-tock, a chilling reminder of time running out. She met Mason again at dusk, under an overpass lit by sodium lamps. He produced a burner phone. "Use this," he said. "It bypasses local towers." She accepted it gratefully. Lightning flickered overhead. He handed her a folder. Inside, blueprints of Dawson's private jet. Escape routes marked in red. "Look here," he pointed. An interior hatch led to the cargo hold. "That's where they hid Brian," Mason said. Sarah's heart skipped. "They moved him there." He nodded. Before the crash, her mind raced. If Brian survived, he's alive somewhere. Mason's face was grave. "They moved him again last night." She slammed the folder shut. "We need to find him now." Suddenly, headlights flooded. The underpass, a convoy of SUVs, screeched to a halt. Doors opened. Men in suits poured out. They fanned out like predators. Mason shoved Sarah behind a concrete pillar. Bullets pinged the pavement. Dust swirled in the glare. Sarah pressed her back into the cold stone. Her pistol felt heavy in her hand. Mason returned fire with precise shots. One man dropped, others took cover. Sarah aimed and fired. A muffled cry echoed. They ducked into a service tunnel. Footsteps thundered above. Mason led her deeper. Water dripped from the ceiling. Her heart pounded. They burst into a sewer grate exit. Night air struck them like a gale. Sarah gulped fresh oxygen. Mason turned to her. "You did good," he said softly. She shook her head. "I almost died." He studied her. "You're stronger than you." "No." They reached her car. Its windows were smashed. Her pistol case lay open on the seat. Empty. She sucked in a breath. Mason scanned the street. "No time," he urged. They ran toward his motorcycle. Engine roared to life. They sped into the night. Rain pelted their faces. Neon reflections danced on wet pavement. Sarah held on tightly. Mason navigated winding roads. Behind them, black SUVs tailed like shadows. Her pulse merged with the engine's roar. They veered onto Pacific Coast Highway. Ocean waves crashed in the darkness. Mason signaled a sharp turn. They dove onto a deserted Coast Guard towers loomed above. He cut the engine abruptly. They froze, breath misting in the cold air. No pursuit. Silence pressed in. Sarah slid off the bike. Her legs trembled. Mason handed her the burner phone. A new message blinked. "See you at the funeral." Her blood ran cold. He looked at her with concern. "They're setting the stage," he said. "Tomorrow will be their greatest play." Sarah stared at the phone. She whispered, voice steady, "Then we'll rewrite the ending." What shocks await Sarah at the funeral itself? Sarah stepped into Mason's garage late that night. The door swung closed behind her with a metallic thud. Tools and targets lined the walls. A punching bag hung from a rusted beam. Mason tossed her gloves. "Try a jab," he instructed quietly. She wrapped her hands with practiced care. Her knuckles still stung from the underpass fight. Rainwater dripped from her coat onto the concrete floor. She slid her hands into the gloves. Mason raised his fist. "Focus on form," he urged. She jabbed the bag. The leather thudded with solid impact. Her breath came in measured bursts. He adjusted her stance. "Keep your guard up," he coached. Her shoulder ached, but she pushed through. "I can do this," she told herself. He nodded approvingly. "Now a combination," he said. She moved her feet. Jab, cross, hook. Bag swung back and forth. She visualized the suited men's faces. Anger lent power to her strikes. She landed a clean hook. Her arms trembled with effort. Mason dropped the bag. "Good," he said. He fetched 2 foam knives. They faced each other. "Defend, then disarm," he demonstrated. He moved swiftly. She parried with uncertainty. Pain shot through her wrist. She bit back a shout. He corrected her grip. Again they sparred. Her movements grew sharper. Fear still lurked in her eyes. After 10 rounds, they paused. He handed her a water bottle. She gulped greedily. They sat on oil drums. Mason shared his story. His sister vanished after the crash. He blamed himself for missing her call. His voice cracked. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. They sat in silence. The next morning, Mason drove them to a rural shooting range. Targets stood against a corrugated metal wall. He handed her a 9mm pistol. Her fingers closed around the grip. She raised the gun carefully. A line. Sight with target, he instructed. Her heart thundered in her chest. She exhaled slowly, pressed the trigger. The shot rang out. Recoil jolted her arm. She blinked at the target. Bullet hole centered near the bullseye. Her breath caught. She lowered the gun. Mason smiled. "Excellent first shot." She felt a spark of pride. They fired 10 more rounds, each shot steadier than the last. Her confidence swelled with every hit. She wiped sweat from her brow. "I can protect myself," she realized. Mason reviewed her form again. He taught her to reload swiftly. Magazines clicked home under his watchful eye. She practiced until her arms ached. That evening, Sarah returned to her apartment. She unpacked the flash drive and photos. Her mind replayed the training. Her muscles felt stronger. Her resolve hardened. She set her pistol and gloves on the table. Outside headlights swept past her window. A shadow paused below. Sarah's breath hitched. She gripped her pistol. "I'm ready," she thought. But the night held another surprise. A silent knock echoed at her door. What threat waits just beyond that door? Asterisk, asterisk. Sarah awoke to her phone's glow. A message from Mason. "Meet me at Pier 12. Her pulse spiked. She grabbed her coat and pistol. The harbor was cloaked in fog. Shipping containers loomed like silent giants. Mason stood beneath a flickering lamp. His face was tense. "Pierce called," he said quietly. "He needs to see us both." Sarah frowned. Something felt off. They walked across damp planks. Footsteps echoed behind them. They reached a rusty ladder. Climbing, they entered an abandoned warehouse. Boxers formed a maze of shadows. Detective Pierce emerged from the gloom. His eyes darted between them. "Thanks for coming," he said. His voice sounded forced. Mason handed over the flash drive. Pierce flicked it into a scanner. The projector hummed to life. Documents splashed across the metal wall. Sarah watched invoices linking Dawson to Pierce himself. Shock froze her limbs. Pierce turned. "I used you both," he confessed. His gaze was cold. "For years, I covered their tracks." Sarah's breath hitched. Mason's jaw clenched. "Why betray my sister?" he demanded. Pierce shrugged. "Power and protection," he said. "Dawson gave me leverage." He stepped closer. "They kept Brian alive. I helped hide him." Sarah recoiled. "Then Brian's disappearance you're doing?" Pierce nodded gravely. Anger flared in Sarah's chest. "You monster," she spat. Mason raised his pistol. Pierce raised his hands. "Wait," he urged. "Listen to me." He revealed another file, a video clip from Dawson's security feed. It showed Brian alive, arguing with Dawson's widow, her face twisted in rage. Sarah felt her blood run cold. "Olivia Thompson," Pierce whispered. "She orchestrated it." Mason's eyes narrowed. "She's your real enemy." A crash sounded behind them. Figures in suits stormed the warehouse. The traitor, Pierce, or more agents. Sarah dove behind crates. Mason dropped into a crouch beside her. Bullets ripped through corrugated metal. Pierce sprinted away. Chaos erupted in the darkness. Sarah grabbed Mason's arm. "We need to escape," she hissed. He nodded. They slipped through a side door. Rain poured from broken skylights. Mason led Sarah to a waiting boat. "Hop in," he urged. He climbed aboard. Mason shoved off. Engines roared in the rain. Behind them, the warehouse doors burst open. Spotlights cut through the storm. Men stood on the dock. They lifted rifles. Sarah gripped the rail. Her heart thundered. Mason gunned the engine. They skated across black water. Bullets splashed around. The hull. Sarah ducked low, her pistol safe in its holster. Mason navigated toward a chain of buoys. They weaved between markers. Pierce's voice crackled on Mason's radio. "I'll delay them." Sarah realized he'd risked himself again. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered, "Thank you." They reached the shore. Mason cut the engine. They stumbled onto wet sand. Fog swallowed their silhouettes. He turned to Sarah. "We need to stop Olivia first." Her jaw set. "How do we lure her?" He pulled a folded note from his pocket. "Tomorrow's gala," he said. "Dawson's foundation event." Sarah's eyes sharpened. "She'll be there." Mason nodded. "We'll expose her in front of everyone." Sarah looked at the dark sea. Moonlight shimmered on waves. Her mind raced with danger. She squeezed Mason's hand. "Let's end this." He smiled grimly. Together, they vanished into the fog, ready to betray the betrayer. Who will stand accused when the gala lights shine? ****. Moonlight glinted on the gala's marble steps. White columns rose under twinkling string lights. Guests in tuxedos and gowns mingled beneath palms. Sarah and Mason slipped through a side entrance. Orchestra strings drifted through open doors. They paused, cloaked in shadow. Inside, Olivia Thompson laughed with dignitaries. Her diamond necklace caught every glow. Sarah exhaled softly. Mason signaled upward. They climbed a narrow balcony staircase. Wood creaked beneath cautious footsteps. At the rail, they overlooked the ballroom. Olivia raised a champagne flute in toast. Laughter rippled through crystal glasses. Mason touched Sarah's arm. "Now," he whispered. They dropped silently behind a row of potted palms. Mason produced a small speaker. He tapped it. Soft static buzzed. Sarah pressed record on her phone. Mason hit play. Olivia's voice echoed. "I ordered that crash. Brian was a threat." Gasps scattered through the crowd. Glasses fell from startled hands. Olivia's eyes widened. She stumbled backward. Security froze in confusion. Mason grabbed Sarah's hand. They rushed toward the exit. Alarms shrieked through marble halls. Red lights pulsed overhead. Olivia screamed, "Stop them!" Bodyguards spilled from alcoves. Sarah ducked beneath a folding table. A heel cracked. Behind her she rolled pistol raise. One guard lunged forward. She squeezed the trigger. A thud silenced him. Mason tackled another before he could draw. Sarah vaulted over chairs. Crystal chandeliers rattled with each step. They burst through the side door. Cold night air hit their faces. Guests flooded behind them in panic. Mason yanked Sarah toward a waiting sedan. Its engine idled on the curb. He smashed the passenger window. They dove inside. Smoke curled from shattered glass. Mason floored the pedal. Tires squealed on polished stone. Olivia's bodyguards gave chase. They sprinted down the steps. Bullets tore into the sedan's rear. Glass sprayed into Sarah's hair. She pressed herself against the seat. Mason veered onto an adjoining street. Narrow alleys swallowed their path. Mason navigated hairpin turns. Sarah kept her phone recording. She glanced at the ballroom footage. Olivia's betrayal played on loop. Her face contorted with shame. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police cars peeled around corners. Mason signaled right. They skidded onto a riverside road. Water shimmered under lamplight. He parked behind a delivery truck. They sprinted toward a rusted footbridge. Wooden planks groaned under weight. Behind them, headlights flooded the roadway. Sarah clutched the phone. Mason opened the bridge gate. They dashed across the span. River spray cooled their faces. Olivia's men appeared at the bridge entrance. They raised rifles. Sarah fired twice. Mason kicked the gate closed. Metal clanged as it latched. They sprinted into the opposite alley. Panting, Sarah leaned against a brick wall. Her chest heaved with adrenaline. Mason checked the road. No pursuit in sight. They ducked into a hidden alcove. Sarah rewound her recording. Olivia's confession filled the night. "This proves everything," Sarah whispered. Mason nodded. "We have her." Suddenly, a flashlight beam swept the alley. Sarah pressed her pistol against Mason's back. He froze. Footsteps approached slowly. A uniformed officer stepped into view. Badge gleamed under torchlight. "Detective Pierce," the man said. His voice betrayed relief. Pierce wore no trench coat tonight, just an official jacket. Sarah lowered her weapon. "Mason," Pierce said softly, "they found Olivia's evidence in your home." Mason frowned. How Pierce handed over a file. Photos showed the broken speaker in Mason's garage. Olivia's bodyguards had retrieved it. Sarah's heart sank. Pierce continued, "We need to move fast." He pointed to a parked van. Inside, agents waited. "This is our ride," he said. Mason nodded. They climbed in. The door slammed behind them. Engines roared. As they sped away, river lights blurred. Sirens faded in the distance. Sarah held her phone to Pierce. "They can't deny this," she said. Pierce smiled grimly. "They already began an arrest." His radio crackled. "Olivia Thompson is in custody," an agent announced. Sarah felt a rush of triumph. But as the van turned a corner, Mason tensed. Pierce sank low in his seat. A bullet shattered the rear window. Glass rained inside. Sarah screamed. Mason slammed to the floor. Pierce shouted, "Ambush! Agents! Return fire through side windows." Van tires screeched. They careened onto a dirt service road. Dust rose in clouds. Sarah crawled toward Mason. He groaned, blood staining his shirt. Pierce dragged them behind metal crates. Bullets tore into steel. Heavy footsteps thundered outside. Olivia's bodyguards formed a perimeter. Sarah's vision blurred with tears. Mason gripped her hand. "I'm alive," he whispered. Sarah swallowed fear. She raised her pistol. "Next shot," she vowed, "will end this." Lightning split the sky overhead. Rain began to pelt the battered van. The night held its breath. Will Sarah and Mason survive this final ambush? Rain washed the alley as dawn approached. Sarah pressed her forehead against Mason's shoulder. Pierce peered around the metal crates. "We can move now," he whispered. They slipped into the van's back compartment. Pierce drove with clinical precision. Mason leaned back, bloodied but breathing. Sarah held his hand gently. They reached the precinct an hour later. Olivia Thompson sat in an interrogation room, her wrists cuffed to the table. Detectives played Sarah's recording on a loop. Olivia's face turned ashen. She refused to speak. That silence spoke volumes. At sunrise, additional arrests followed swiftly. 3 board members resigned under indictment. Corrupt officers faced suspension. The Dawson Foundation froze its accounts. Sarah watched from the observation window. Brian's name appeared on a new file. Pierce handed her a security badge. "This is from another department," he said. She scanned the badge. It included coordinates for a private island. Brian's location, Pierce confirmed. Sarah's heart stuttered. She gathered Mason and Jenna. By midday, they boarded a small Coast Guard cutter. Waves slapped the hull under grey skies. Jenna tended Mason's wound on deck. Her paramedic training soothed his pain. Sarah paced with mounting hope. At dusk, they reached the island's rocky shore. A single boathouse sat on stilts. Pierce used a master key to enter. Inside, Brian lay on a cot, eyes closed, weak but alive. Sarah dropped to her knees. Tears blurred her vision. "Brian," she whispered. His eyelids fluttered open. "Sarah," he croaked. She cupped his hand. His pulse was steady. Jenna checked his vitals. "He's dehydrated," she said. Sarah fetched water and medicine. Brian drank slowly. His eyes gleamed with relief. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. Sarah let out a shaky laugh. Mason stood by the doorway. He offered a small smile. Brian coughed and sat up. "I owe you everything," he said. Sarah shook her head. "You're my brother," she replied. She hugged him gently. Pierce locked the door behind them. Outside, wind rustled palm fronds. Rain clouds broke apart overhead. Stars appeared in patches of dark sky. A week later, at the courthouse steps, Sarah testified. Her voice rang clear and steady. Olivia's trial began under intense media glare. Sarah's articles ran on front pages nationwide. She watched Brian leave the courthouse alive. He waved to the press with a cautious smile. Mason walked beside him. Jenna pressed Sarah's hand in support. Pierce gave Sarah a proud nod. The city felt lighter that morning. Contracts were rewritten. The Dawson Foundation reopened under new leadership. Sarah returned to the Gazette with a hero's welcome. Her editor applauded her investigation. She declined a promotion. Her focus remained on truth. Brian moved into a small cottage inland. He started a foundation for accident victims. Mason rejoined his detective unit. Jenna continued her paramedic work. Pierce resumed mentoring young detectives. Friends gathered at Sarah's bungalow. They celebrated with coffee and laughter. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains. Photos of Brian's recovery lined the mantel. Sarah placed the cracked watch beside them. It no longer reminded her of loss. It symbolized survival. At sunset, Sarah walked the beach alone. Waves curled around her feet. She breathed the salty air deeply. Her chest felt light. Footsteps approached from behind. Mason joined her arms. Crossed, he handed her a folded piece of paper. Inside, an invitation to Brian's foundation gala. She smiled and tucked it into her jacket. He slid an arm around her shoulders. Together, they watched the horizon blaze gold. The storm had passed. A new day dawned. ****